You'll be aware of the speculation. Some people have called it a civil war behind the scenes. We've had two key directors leave the club. We've had a new sporting director come in who gave an interview, I think it was probably 11 days ago now, Paul Mitchell, in which he questioned the way that the transfer policy has been run, with Eddie Howe central to that. And I don't think Eddie Howe took too kindly to that. Do Newcastle have to be careful right now?
I think they do, yeah, because you don't want to upset the apple cart, but they've bought a new sporting director and they've probably given a job description and what they want him to do in terms of why they brought him into the football club. I know Paul Mitchell, I've spoken to Paul Mitchell on many occasions, and I know his way of being a sporting director is by getting value for the football club. I know in the past, when Newcastle were down in the lower echelons of the Premier League, they needed to bring players in with experience to get them out of that problem. They've done that now, and now what they need is value, because you're looking at them and you're saying, OK, if you do not bring players in that is going to bring you value, you're going to end up selling your best players, because to meet the PSR rules and all the regulations in terms of financial fair play, you're going to have to sell some of your best players. That's not what you want to do. So you have to bring in players that's going to add value to your football club. You'll
gather that I'm asking Les questions with his sporting director of football hat on, where you worked so well at QPR for almost a decade, Les. Who should have the final say on the transfers? Should it be someone like Eddie Howe, who's been successful, who's been such a vital part of Newcastle's development from almost relegation club to Champions League?
I think I always felt from a footballing director's point of view, from my own personal opinion, was that there should be no player that comes in to work with the first team that the manager doesn't have a say on. I mean, when I worked at QPR, anyone under the first team, so like coming into the 21s or the 18s, well, I didn't have to bother the manager about that, because that was development. But if someone's coming into the first team, then the manager has to be right with that player coming in, how he's going to add to his squad, how it's going to disrupt his squad. He needs to know. So for me, the manager has to have a say, and so it's a thing where people are coming together. It's not me against you. I'm making this decision and you've got to work with that. We're collaborating to make sure we've got the right things for the club going forward.
But this seemed really strange, Les, when he spoke at Eddie Howe on Friday in his regular news conference and was asked whether he'd spoken to Paul Mitchell after he gave that interview 9 days ago. It's now 11 days. They said at that point, he said, I haven't been in touch. Paul Mitchell has not been in touch. He hasn't spoken. Is that normal for a manager and sporting director to have that distance?
No, because I read something a little while ago. Well, when I was there last week, I read in the programme that Paul Mitchell was saying that him and Eddie Howe speak virtually every day if he's not at the training ground.
I think that was around the transfer window, wasn't it?
Right. OK. So you know, I'm not privy to reading what Eddie Howe has said, but normally Paul Mitchell would be at the training ground most days, I would have thought, unless he's out scouting on players, and he's not going to be doing that every day. So I would imagine there's some sort of communication between him and Eddie in most days.
How important do you think Eddie Howe is to Newcastle?
Well, the job that he's done there has been absolutely incredible. And if you talk about the players that he's brought in, you know, Guimaraes, Isak, Barnes, Gordon, you know, they're the players that are of high quality that have taken the club and given the fans so much enjoyment. I think it's quite a dangerous game to play when you're trying to fall out with the manager, especially with someone that's done such a good job. I couldn't agree more. I've not been a director of football, you know, Les will understand a lot more than I do, but it has to be a collective. You have to give a manager, how I see it, 2, 3, 4 options. If you want a left back, have a look at there's 4 players that we like. They reach the stats that we want. Their XG is good. They fit the criteria of what we're looking for. You don't just say to a player, "Oh, there you go." I've seen it before. I've seen it while I was at Tottenham with managers before. They've just given a player they didn't even know who he was.
But I think the frustration in this case is that Eddie Howe clearly wanted a centre back. They clearly wanted probably a right winger as well, going into the last day of transfer deadline.
Fair enough.
And the sporting director has not been able to get those players over the line.
But then you've got to understand as well, there's levels of money that you can go to. So the manager might say, right, I want Jamie Redknapp, and they're saying to me, right, he's worth 70 million. I can't afford 70 million. So what we have to do is...
Gets injured a bit as well.
Glad you said that.
So we have to...
Not for me. That's a private joke, by the way.
What you have to do is you have to try and find what's in the mould of a Jamie Redknapp that's affordable for the football club. And that's where the 4 or 5 options come into play. So you say, look, we can't afford Jamie Redknapp, but this is what we can afford. And what you've got to remember now, when you look at Newcastle, every player that Newcastle go after, it's a little bit like when Man City first came into. They're going to be double, triple the price that they're offering
the
to
Newcastle tax.
Yeah, exactly. You know what I mean? So
We've got an interesting graphic there to show you what Eddie Howe, or how he measures up to other clubs since his appointment. Look, only Manchester City, Arsenal, Liverpool have picked up more points since Eddie Howe was appointed at Newcastle. And if he gets a fair run at it this year, Paul, you know, they're in the top 4 now. Is that realistic again?
Newcastle, Tottenham, Man United, Villa and Chelsea are fighting for one place, in my opinion, to finish 4th. I think that's their little league. That's the team. Why not? You know, he's a good manager. I've been down to Bournemouth when he was manager at Bournemouth. I played with Eddie. He was at Portsmouth. He talks so well. He gets his message across well. He's a good coach. You know, he sees things. You know, he reminds me a bit of a young Mourinho, a young one where he's not scared to make changes. You know, half time there, bang, 3 subs on. Sometimes people go, you know what, let's wait till 60, wait till 55, wait till 60. He just goes, bang, 3 on. I know Isaac had to come off because he got hit, but he don't mess about. And I like that. I like that. And he can leave big players out. Trippier's a big player. Trippier's a big player. He's an international player. He's one of the most experienced players, and he's gone for the two young lads as fullbacks. So he's not scared to make decisions. I like it. I think he's a brilliant manager.
The one thing Eddie said at the end there was it's a tight-knit unit, and that's how they need to keep it. And that includes the sporting director and everybody that's involved at the football club. It's not a case of them against us.
So get together and have a cuddle.
Yeah, because everybody wants the same thing. And that's for Newcastle to be successful. So it's not someone over in the corner here saying, I'm going to do it this way because I think we're going to be successful this way, and someone else saying, I want to do it that way.
And I think that's where the lines got a little bit muddled in the last week, whether everyone was pulling in the same direction. Just a final one on this. Do managers get easier or harder to deal with once they've won a few games?
Very much harder when they've won a few games. Don't worry about that.
How would you know? He's a QPR.
We'll come back to
Can't wait for you to dance next week.
Not for me, actually.
Not for me.
You'll be lucky to get a 7, that is for sure.